history is smoke.
Cast and cry, raise the million pylons high. All our kin were bound to fly for that far shore forlorn. Onward high, who but we may tame the sky? Who but we shall distant die on that far shore forlorn? Velvet blue the meadows lie, though the hardy ones defy. Gold shall never break our tie to that far shore forlorn. Onward high, who but we may tame the sky? Who but we shall distant die on that far shore forlorn? Mouth to mouth and eye to eye, sleep where comets whisper by. Sleep while constellations sigh of that far shore forlorn. Onward high, who but we may tame the sky? Who but we shall distant die on that far shore forlorn?
Hey all, Siege here, and today we finally delve into Tennocon 2025, the demo and initial trailers specifically for what the year has in store for the lore and story accordingly. And there's a lot to go over. In this video, I'm going to provide as much relevant context for what we were shown to give as good an idea as possible as to what was, as well as what may be very soon. Whereas I believe it fairly obvious it will have us engaging with the sentience and a presumed lost history, I would not rule out the inclusion of other loose story ends finding their way into Tau as well, because what we are shown is clouded in more ways than one. And it's also pretty important to remember that DE has a history of changing sometimes substantial parts of the demo to the final product, so I would say it's not just possible, but almost probable that any number of things we see and hear could change substantially the Railjack and Duvir reveal, as well as Warframe 1999's Hex Quest, are overwhelming evidence of this very thing. So in understanding that point, provided here is the entire gameplay demo, but timestamps will be available.
No huda, Tenno. I win. You let.
Let's call it even.
Call it peace offer.
What did you see?
I know Kung Fu. Show me.
Tao.
But not enough.
Not enough!
This is the only way we find out.
Flooding their head with polluted histories. I won't. Come, Tenno. Let's get you dry.
It's okay, Lloyd. I have to. I want to.
Some things are best forgotten.
I had a friend, Lloyd. Like me. His name was Adis. Again.
How late the we?
Relax. We've got this.
We swore to carry the sacred light of our dominion into the deepest dark. And this we have done. Swear now to defend this holy treaty alongside our blessed and brave creations, the sentience of Tao.
Can you believe we used to be at war?
Joke, Tenno.
Welcome to the Tauron Academy, a place you'll learn about in this quest as to a time, a place where Sentient and Tenno perhaps learn things together that we'll explore in this demo. And they also perhaps did research together, including creating things that aligned Orokin and Sentient technology, like the next Prime.
Disgusting, isn't it? Orokin gold wasted. I wonder, which of you would this aberration attack first?
Stupid.
Watch your mouth, void lugger.
Ah, please, with me. The place for conflict is in the dojo.
So Caliban Primaxis is coming, and he is, of course, part of the history of you and the Tenno, a time when sentients perhaps were mentors and even Archimedeans. This is Archimedean Itzam, and he has something pretty important to teach the Tenno and sentient alike.
Respectful.
Like any good academy, you will be tested on knowledge, studying things. So let's see what's going to happen in this room.
Adis, Truth Bloom, have you adapted to the Tenno ways? When the applications of Tauron are applied to Naramon's theories, what is the expected outcome?
A new somatic connection.
A Somatic connection new? Power increase many?
No cheating. If you are tested by the Seven, we must show your evolution to their...
Anarch strike is underway. Tauron students to deployment.
Let's go, Truth Bloom.
Aid us.
We are at a time to defend a treaty, so that means the job is on us to do so.
Well, praise the void. You two managed to show up on time. Borrow Overlook. Go. Now.
Superhero landing! Yeah, that's really hard on your knees. Totally impractical. They all do it.
Sight. Stand tall. For the Oroki. Tenno, Savior. Was the old Macross cannon. Can you take it out?
Trust the we.
As time goes on and the man in the wall continues, don't you think it's time that we run on the wall again?
Get on that gun, Tenno! We're getting pounded!
Tantivy! Ha! What say you all? Shall we enlighten this Tenno?
Shields ate us!
radius expansion.
This street is going to live, Galastra, and you don't get to tear it up. Dropships inbound.
Valder, my old pet. Better count your flock again, dog, and keep your ships on the ground. Else I'll be set to carving your lost lamb.
Hurry, Tenno! Bad place. Golden cursed. Long ago, precepting.
No history taught in those Tenno schools? Peace cannot abide the machines.
You're the only ones keeping this war alive.
Let me show you why. A place to breathe. The promise of a home, so lightly surrendered.
Coming, Hivekin! Let him go!
Of course! When he's good and ready, child. Sentient TQ-776BL. Repel intruders.
Hivekin! Adis will heal!
override, child. This only ends one way.
want to. It was him or me. Him or me. I killed him, Lotus.
Feeling better, kiddo? I killed him. Isa. Did you now? Is that how you remember it? Yes. Good.
Whether the preceding area is a vision based on what we're shown in Albrecht's labs or various actual locations within the infamous Tau, this is the home of the Sentients, and one the Orkin had chosen to be their next as well. The titles of each of the initial trailers themselves, shown in the introduction, are pieces of stories we received in the past. The first, Our Histories Spoke, specifically refers to Natah's exposition within the lead-up to the Rogue Lowlist fight.
Our history is smoke, blurred by dreams, guided by ghosts. A voice, a void, lurks inside you, its purpose not yet shown. But what am I? My father was a farmer, my mother, a carpenter, given light by the Golden Lords to build for them a better world. But my family's journey was long. Time began to change their light. Creativity, pride, a will to live. So the Golden Wrath came, and after, I was born. A mimic, a spy. Conceived to burrow into nests and swallow the pitch eggs of their war machine, the Tenno. But when I saw your tender faces, I took mercy. Or so we were told. But in truth, we were both imprisoned in Lua's belly. My light remade by the creators. I became a memory, a ghost. Reprogrammed to destroy my family, my people, my history.
Here she gives us a brief summation of the sentient side of the old war, when they were originally sent to Tau by the Orkin to terraform that area in preparation for their arrival, but also offers a brief glimpse into their mindset, that they had become a family, no different from any other, and for them, Tau had become their home, one that would have to be defended at all costs. With the title of the second teaser trailer alluding to the sentient's understanding of what the Orkin had done to the Origin system, and more importantly, what would invariably happen to anywhere else they would decide to move to. The passage itself alludes to specific dialogue found within the discussion Hun Hao has with the Stalker shortly before the events of Jade Shadows in what's known as the Reaper's Lament. He explains,
"How much do you recall, my shadow? Do you even remember what came before this time of scars? Your master sent steel and flesh to cross the gap. Clay they wish to rule and sculpt into a new and toxic paradise. Laughable. Even at the end, they never truly understood the answer lay not in things their stolen blue-blooded fingers could covet. Answer? A song. Your music reached our listening spines in Tau long before their rebel crusades. Do you understand? When you heard the Naga drums, did you realize my people heard the thunder of our bitter, belated victory? When your pride consumes all that you love,
Perhaps they will hear the wail of your failings back at home as well. Hun Hao is going into the details of what he believed was a sentient victory over the Orkin. How they prevented the Orkin from getting there and, in their minds, polluting the place they'd all come to love. Something the events of the New War and what we're shown here now greatly put into question. Which comes to the sacrifice they all had to make, highlighted in the third trailer called Bring an End to This. It refers specifically back to the Nata quest, shortly after Hun Hao had been awakened.
We crossed the gap, wounds and ruin to bring an end to this. We severed worlds, let them destroy me. Why is the sequence not complete?
He is in disbelief over the fact that the entirety of their plan, culminating in Hun Hao's dormancy for literal generations, had gone off perfectly, save for one part, the very last, the destruction of the Tenno children, which would have ended the possibility of the Orkin ever getting vengeance on the sentients for what was done, in his mind at least. As we now know, though, Nata at some point transformed or was transformed into the Lotus and would not kill them.
Nata, Lotus, you cannot hide this past any longer.
There are gaps. I had my mission, and I have completed it. All but the last sequence.
To destroy the Tenno.
The war was over, so I hid them away. In the second dream, I could not destroy them.
And yet, you were born to. So tell me, what made you stop to reject your nature?
All missions to the Origin system required a sacrifice. Me and my kind become barren when crossing the gap. It is the one flaw we never overcame.
Nata wanted children of her own.
Nata was the daughter, until I destroyed her. Now, I am the Lotus. Now I am the mother.
Because the line wombs in ruin refers to the sentient's inability to procreate or replicate after void exposure in any way, thus ending their line on a long enough scale of time.
I was the daughter. I became the mother. In time I shall be the witch. Blind once again, empty of all but wisdom.
And because of this very concept, the lure of children, seemingly helpless, innocent, and yet incredibly powerful, in the form of the Zariman survivors, returned from the void, were instead saved and utilized into the Lotus's own fighting force, with her appearing to then want to remove the last vestiges of not just the Orkin, but her sentient kin as well, towards the end of the Old War. This being specifically shown during the era cinematic.
Let her go.
If I had a heart, it would be broken. If my eyes could weep, I'd be blind. Look at what they've made of you. You're a god. You're a queen. But somehow the bees have you as a hostage. Do you even recognize me anymore?
I recognize the enemy.
After that, she essentially took dominion of the moon.
Sweet prophet, the moon exists. It was in the void all along. I knew the Lotus was powerful, but this, she erased history. We thought it was destroyed all this time. My, Lotus, you make a fine villain.
And chose to hide it within the very void that had given these special children their gifts. A queen among the aphids, as her brother Era would himself crown. These orphans, of their own hand, mind you, possessed powers so potent, her father commissioned the whole of them destroyed, creating a daughter specifically for the task, and I believe this goes to show just how dangerous the sentients viewed the Tenno, something we may uncover even more evidence of in the very near future, with the specifics of all of this hidden to this very day, with just enough information to keep things vague.
Yes, hurry, Tenno, but be careful. Last time you got close with the sentients, you wiped out an entire civilization. But you don't remember that, do you?
But deals with devils in this universe are almost impossible to avoid, and in allying himself with Ballas in order to achieve victory against the Orkin, he, the famed executor responsible for the underhanded yet necessary persuasion, allowed for the sentient's approval amongst the Orkin in the first place, given that their creation was in strict opposition to their own immutable legems or laws, I imagine would seem like a bargain worth exploring. And against these very Golden Lords wouldn't have even been possible without Ballas's involvement. So in trying to overthrow such a powerful and oppressive regime, well, all miracles require sacrifice, and that cost is one he continues to pay, having to then watch his plan become corrupted, both in having his own daughter and then later his son take the side of his co-conspirator in attempt to, yet again, bring Orkin overindulgence to his beloved Tau. And while that was in the end repelled, another Orkin, or potentially a much, much worse entity.
He's ash in seconds. No need for misery. Come, now. Murmur expelled. Tau is in sight. They've given their lives for this.
Supposedly has their eye on this area. Now, regarding the demo's events, firstly portraying multiple Prime Warframes, Prime Grineer soldiers, one such is clearly visible, and all of which long dead and abandoned on this lifeless surface. Many have speculated this to be a kind of continuation of the Mag Prime Codex entry, where it states,
"We strapped in. Safety's off, waiting for the punch, waiting for death. Through my filthy porthole, I saw stars among the outlines of the other splinter ships, queuing for the solar rail. It would soon grip us with an incomprehensible power and cast us through the void into the mouth of our enemy. I watched the ships one by one, bending and gone, each crammed with zero-tech soldiers sucking stale air, white-knuckling their percussion rifles, each filled with a desperation that comes from extinction. Our ship would be the last to cross the gap. Our ship had special cargo. It was essentially empty. Just 10 men like me, strapped in with the best zero-tech suits and weapons the Empire could build. And it stood in the aisle, a slender and eyeless metal form, a Tenno inside its warframe, vaguely human, vaguely feminine. Was this armor or some ornate carapace for the monster that lived inside? I strained against the harness as the ship yawed for final approach. I could see the Tenno standing there freely, solemn and gold gleaming, oblivious to the inertial force. I had been until then a Tenno denier. They were ghosts, propaganda, twisted casualties of the Void era, not possibly real. Here it was in the flesh. The Empire, in their desperation, was going to turn the demons loose and hope for the best. Who did we fear more? The enemy or this monster? We had our safeties off. Could we trust it? Then it didn't matter anymore. The punch came and our windows became blinding. When we could see again, our ship was somewhere else, shattered and dead in an instant. My lungs were flattened, eyes full of death. Ship debris glittered like a night snow. The alien blue star was dark and blinding beyond us. The countless articulating worm ships of our enemy ringed in glowing discs, undulating and heat-bursting the surviving soldiers like me. This is where I died. I was in our disc, sweeping over my right and setting my blood on fire. My vision flattened, the hearing muffled and buzzed. I could feel the side of my face going slack and wet. I was in a dying dream. I saw a bright spot blurring and weaving toward me. I felt a tug toward it from the metal clasps on my suit. It reached me, rising up. A gleaming beast, a plume of golden wings rising and unfolding behind it. An angel. It snatched me from my death. I could feel my lungs fill as it wrapped me in its wings. Its void shield shimmered blue, strained under the enemy beams. I felt a sudden tug of acceleration. I closed my eyes and held on like a child. I woke on the floor, the sting of crisping flesh on my face and side. It was standing over me, the wings gone. I heard the cracking of weapons echoing down the corridor. Maybe the mission would be saved, but I was dying, and so I waved my hand to send it away. I felt a pistol thrust in my hand as I was heaved to my feet. The angel had saved me, pulled me from hell, but it would not pity me. I was to die on my feet by its side. I turned my good side toward the gunfire and raised the gun. It nodded, its outstretched metal hand surging and pulsing in ancient shapes as blue shimmered around me. It turned, drawing its blade, and together we surged headlong into the hailstorm of death and fire that awaited us.
At first, this passage does seem to line up in some very important ways with what we're seeing, right down to the Mag Prime resting among the ruin of the area. But it turns out all of it to be a kind of training in the end, with the Tenno remembering in some facet a previous relationship with a sentient, and revealing a place we weren't necessarily made aware of before. A real civilization. Something the Lullaby of the Manifold, to me at least, attempts to portray under the same kind of chain or prison gang song, typically sung by those pressed into servitude. Something we've had experience before with the people of Fortuna. Well, before our involvement, of course. Songs sung to keep time for the work being done, and with their home being the prize for their work and sacrifice. Singing, cast and cry, raise the million pylons high. All our kin were born to fly for that far shore forlorn. Onward high, who but we may tame the sky? Who but we shall distant die on that far shore forlorn? Velvet blue the meadows lie, though the haughty ones defy. Gold shall never break our tie to that far shore forlorn. Onward high, who but we may tame the sky? Who but we shall distant die on that far shore forlorn? Mouth to mouth and eye to eye, sleep where comets whisper by. Sleep while constellations sigh of that far shore forlorn. Interestingly enough, at the end of the Tennocon demo, we are given an additional stanza. When your spring of hope is dry, dream of me and hear me cry. Seek to meet me by and by on that far shore forlorn. This was their journey, with them cast into the unknown to bring the Orcan Empire further into the cosmos, all of them, specifically born to fly to the forlorn shore of Tau, as noted in the Detron crewman synthesis imprint. The words driving home this bond they all seem to have and would need, daring to go where the Orcan could not, terraforming the habitable areas in Tau to look almost identical to the Orcan capital of the moon, and assumedly function in a similar way, but in that very same breath, likely meeting their deaths there as well, be it during the trip or at the end of their lives on their new home, if they are successful. Velvet Blue Meadows, I believe, refers to Warframe's blue stars of Tau, but bear in mind, Tau Ceti's star isn't actually blue, it's actually yellow. More akin, in fact, to the next line. the haughty or arrogant ones, with the gold they refer to being that which the Orokin fashion, but not enough to break their ties to this place. I imagine the stanza of mouth to mouth and eye to eye referencing how they will, even in the deepest dark, amongst the very constellations themselves, where comets whisper by, do all of it together, living and dying for each other, something I believe is portrayed most specifically where this song, our quote-unquote friend possesses, heals or brings the lifeless sentient back to themselves. And the song, one that seems to follow the sentients, Nata, and maybe even Void Angels, given the same naming convention is used, well, do they share a connection too in some way, even if it's only through Void influence? As I see it, if the Void can negatively affect the sentients, can it not potentially augment them in an unknown way as well? A kind of bargain each is given in exchange for their unwilling surrender of their wounds. That, of course, is my own interpretation, but it's the last added section of lyrics that to me could be unwittingly prophetic in regards to a future meeting, which would be very interesting given that we've been largely led to believe by the Lotus herself that Tau, at least at the moment, is silent. And it makes me wonder about the Lotus flowers that were presented in the lead-up trailers, them being placed in front of the 3 starting frames, hinting very much back to the Awakening quest beginning, potentially even offering us additional context on the character portrayed there, as we still don't have a definitive answer as to who or what she is. Tennocon itself seemed very much themed around our beginnings and what we all remember, so I would say more definitive information on the Lotus, specifically after the events of the Old War, may be on the horizon with this quest. That Lotus flower petal is oddly reminiscent of those associated with Jade's memories. And like those feathers or even the Ayaten statues, all of which containing memories, could these be utilized to provide us new information about the past, should we be able to locate them in the area? We can't find out soon enough, in my opinion. Now, whereas at first glance the man of the wall is seemingly absent, going to Tau will undeniably offer it another conduit to that area. And if that does occur and we turn out to be the cause, well, we'd very much be approaching Entrati levels of helping the Void. So I think it's important to mention that the first 3 teaser trailers were all released 3 days apart. And while this release schedule is odd, in this world it's almost predictable at this point, with it maybe even being Entrati's doppelganger who's really interested in getting to Tau in the first place, even having influence over the trailer's releases. Warframe 1999 definitively showed us even DE is not outside the influence of the Void. If that isn't concerning enough, remember, we still have Pazul.
Pazul is not merely insane, Tenno. There is another mind at work within him.
The demonic ram out there who has himself possessed Era, much like the Void has done to Major Ruzalka.
I was dying all along. Did you know that? Dying from the poison I sucked down to kill the tech rot in my lungs. Until it held out my own severed hand to me and offered me life.
And it is he who has seemingly taken over leadership of the last bastion of Narmer. That, while on the surface appears mostly diminished, bringing the Void out there with us would really only compound any situation. And what does exist of the present day Tau, well, perhaps we'll get to see, as well as maybe continue to further reveal the ambitions the Indifference still seems to harbor over potentially this place, as well as our own space mom. Its subtle nod to a reckoning with the Lotus at some point, symbolically shown as a potential serious problem.
We had a deal. The deal was shook. A little handshake, all it took. Though from the deal, the wee child ran.
Yet still, we end as we began.
And it would appear she too has had dealings and angered her host in the same way we have. The curious inclusion of the Heretic of Zada update, coming before Tau, showing not only proto-frames of Harrow and Wisp, portrayed as what I'd consider a dark priest and none accordingly, but also something being deemed a devil frame, Uriel, shown in Harrow's initial trailer years ago. And heretical in its own right, as Uriel is widely known as an archangel, specifically of wisdom, shining the light of truth into the darkness, and them calling this the heretic, or someone who practices religious heresy, well, it does seem a dark turn is in the future. I've long believed in Trotty to be the missing connection between Rel and Harrow, so I really do wonder if we're going to be given any information regarding that frame's initial purpose, what had happened in the lead up to Rel's encounter, and maybe even find a connection between Palladino's line, those who first dealt with Rel, and Wisp's origin within the arc of this story. I'm going to get into that a bit more in another video, as it's its own thing. But regarding the phrases of text that we see at the end of the teaser trailers, while it might have been predictable, this was from none other than Ballas himself. And within this demo, we are perhaps shown the most shocking development of Tennocon, that this hidden history to the Warframe world portrays a time, brief perhaps, but one where the Orokin and Sentience may have worked in harmony, showing the operator and their friend just existing. And this all very much goes against what we've been led to believe in regards to the story itself. But it would appear at some point, perhaps a single frame, like what's described in the aforementioned Mag Prime Codex, or many, given the lifeless primes we've already seen there, were sent, and instead of wanton battle and death, for a time at least, negotiated a kind of ceasefire, with, amazingly enough, a crowned Ballas, an image at least, leading the way. Portraying an Orokin Empire, or a facet of it, that actually doesn't appear so bad. And dare I say, a Ballas that's exhibited as perhaps even a hero of sorts, at least to the Sentients, if nothing else. I would make the argument that here, given the accord between Hun Hao and himself and his involvement with the Sentients during the New War, he may to this day be revered. And if the story of Tau goes on to say that the Tenno were in the end responsible for destroying the peace he had brokered, after, of course, taking the eyes of the one he loved and then being forced into the position of sentencing that person to death because she chose the children over him, well then, what are we to assume about the Tenno's true history? Are we the monsters? The demons he's always claimed? And are we finding out that perhaps we too are capable of making and have already made horrific decisions with cataclysmic after effects?
Do you remember the Zariman? How much you learned once the restraints were taken off. Think what we could do here.
Bowweaver, in ways, has already begun making that claim. So, if this is the true history, well, we may in fact play a much greater, much darker role than most thought, worthy in fact of needing to be forgotten. I once asked in another video if there were Dark Tenno in the Warframe universe, because they can't all be good, right? I just never considered that all the Tenno may be dark by nature. An inconvenient truth? Can we at least reasonably assume that this is where Ballas remained dormant through the years until reappearing in the Apostasy Prologue? In the end, all of what we've seen here, the oversized sentient mech looking eerily similar to Hun Hao, but kind of having a vessel's head and looking very vessel-like in nature, and even using its sentient naming convention to house our Tenno's long-forgotten friend Adis, who themselves maybe calls our Tenno Hayden Tenno? Tough to say with the way the words are written out here, But regardless, the camaraderie we see on Tau, this picture of the past, all of it's somewhat blurred by verbiage Lloyd uses when we finally learn it's a kind of memory, being unlocked by the Lotus, by jacking into the Tenno's mind, where we see a third reference to this state they always seem to find themselves in. I feel like it's a good time to say as well that anyone who didn't think the Matrix was a big inspiration for the last few quests, well, come on, I believe the French even have a word for that. They call it an homage. And with the Lotus is clearly attempting to learn something from these recollections, needing the Tenno to re-engage, and yet Lloyd appearing to want to shield them from harm both physically and psychologically, pleads for her to abstain from subjecting them to polluted histories. Whether this means the Orokin had carefully crafted history to a very specific narrative this information would have put into jeopardy, or if these are visions, perhaps of aspects of eternalistic strands of Kra that represent possible realities, one specifically that might hold a key to what the Lotus needs, or these even being the Lotus's memories herself transferred into the operator, it's really tough to say. There exists some dialogue within the Sacrifice quest that allows for the possibility that this is all from another Tenno, or even her perspective, especially with the end of the demo so closely matching that of the Man in the Wall's visit to the operator after the sacrifice in taking on a false memory. It's all really subjective, and there has been some information given from DE regarding what they are saying it is, but I won't believe that until the quest actually comes out, because they like to misdirect too. Which would make sense, of course. You wouldn't want to reveal things right away, would you? What I can say pretty definitively, though, is the incredibly brief sliver of an eyeless Margulis being shown at the moment of connection with the Lotus, in my mind, doesn't bode well, with it either being a lie to manipulate us, or the really real truth that yes, we did burn her whole eye sockets through, and we're probably lucky her brain didn't go with it. Although, is it just me, or does she look kind of dead here? I don't know, but I think being in a quest with so many connecting threads thematically to the sacrifice, and further this being considered a holy treaty or deal, in other words, and then the sanctum filled with those who have now had so many dealings with the void already, well, I would just caution that any of this is what it seems. Probably most important in all of this is our recollection of killing a sentient, seemingly close to Adis, in an absolutely epic battle score, intertwined with the aforementioned song, may turn out to be a kind of fulcrum behind an apparatus in Entradi's lab activating at this very moment. And I'm here to tell you, if that's the case, then it definitely can't be a good sign. Now, in regards to the treaty itself, there's another faction made of Grineer and Dax soldiers that seem to not only reject this truce, but are adamantly opposed to it, deemed separatists. While being at odds with the sentients, I have to say that it is quite strange that, by all rights, the separatists won. If the Warframes were on the side of the sentients, what happened? The tone of this demo, cheerful and rather hopeful for the most part, takes a very dark twist once this kind of egg-like structure is revealed, because within its confines, we walk through a sentient grave, with their motionless bodies strewn all over the corridors, culminating in a larger sentient being trapped in what looks like a prison of more of these bodies, with a curious red energy emitting itself, making up the very bars of the prison. And to me, with the separatists being so fearful of what we've been shown, I am myself drawn to the change in eye color we see, and how it akens back to the aforementioned Era quest again. Maybe even shedding light on something I've long wondered. What does the change in the Lotus's eye color represent here? Because whereas it appears she's in control of 610-0, one of them, well, I would say you could probably make the argument that the Lotus isn't the one in control, and this one may be holding the reins. Does the connection that Era states imply that the separatists and their Orokin counterparts had realized the sentience had another flaw, one that was far more dangerous. Within the Heretic of Zada trailer, we hear Albrecht ask, can the Orokin ever be forgiven? Which infers to me that it is the Orokin in general, not just Albrecht, that the indifference holds ill will towards. A theme that's been present since the Hex quest, with the whole of it potentially giving us the context we've so desperately desired regarding Albrecht's deal, and how Harrow came to be the prison for Rel's embodiment of the difference, as well as the specifics of how it was so effective, as it would be incredibly useful should we be able to potentially turn Major Rizalka into a proto-frame, possibly trapping it in the same way it was done so long ago. The components are all there. We just need to understand the process, if considered under this framework. In that same vein, we may come to understand the full meaning of the light as well. That the void appears to value is another parallel to be found within Tao's history. The sentients showing this same affinity to their own, the ones they treasured as they ventured into the deepest dark, and in correlation would have had for any void exposure. In the end, it seems quite clear that Orokin structure, with what looks to be a Duviri-esque pattern at the very top, has been decimated in what appears to be the final scene. Adis's mask still among the blasted out ruins, along with a number of these withered lotus flowers. And from that image alone, the lotus depiction of this place is pretty accurate. So the question remains, is it all real? Or just another strand of Kra, a potential reality? And if that's the case, is it just another misdirection in the long line the Tenno have already suffered up to this point in order for others to achieve their goals? I don't want to be that guy, but like I said, literally everyone within the Sanctum Anatomica has had some very distinct history or interaction with the man on the wall now. Every single one. So how much weight does the final line of dialogue in the demo actually hold, given its aforementioned parallel to the end of the sacrifice? What do you think? Will the man on the wall be involved in the Tau update, or will it focus solely on the history of the Orokin and the sentience? Let me know in the comments. I'll be curious to read your thoughts on that one. One of the things I believe many of us are interested in learning about is the executors themselves, to see them and how they really were. And given that Ballas was presumably here for so long undetected, do you think it's possible that some of the other ones still exist? Perhaps out in Tau to this very day? The unique appearance of a destroyed area required to keep them hidden from any potential consequences in the aftermath of the collapse. You tell me. But with that being said, we have the potential for a really fun year of lore in the game. And I hope this offered you a very detailed look into what we've already received from DE, priming you for what we're about to get, or for additional context after it's done. Time will tell, but I'm excited to get there. At any rate, I hope you all have a wonderful day today, a wonderful rest of your week, and I'll talk at you all in the next one. Take care, everybody. Bye.